So welcome to Dudley and Walsall Mental Health's second Facebook Live. We held our first Facebook Live last month, all about apprentices for National Apprenticeship Week. And now today we're talking about stress as part of Stress Awareness Month. So if you both want to introduce yourselves.
So my name is Leonard. I work with Dudley and Walsall Mental Health Trust in what's called the IAP unit, which is the Improved Access to Psychological Therapies.
I'm Dominic Dutton. I also work for the IAPT unit, and I'm one of the trainee cognitive behavioural therapists with the service. And prior to that, I was working as one of the psychological wellbeing practitioners.
Thank you. So as you know, it's Stress Awareness Month this month, and so we've chosen to speak to you both, but for those who don't know, tell us a bit about your service to begin with so people know why we've chosen to speak to you.
That's a good question. So Dudley and Walsall have an amazing service not a lot of people know about, and we have a team of therapists, and since maybe the 70s we're discovering more and more about psychological issues, and whilst everybody's is different, we can almost put people in, not pigeonholes, but distinct areas of psychological problems, and we're learning all the time about how to treat them. In Dudley and Walsall, we've got a team of fantastic therapists that are geared up, ready, and waiting to treat these specific disorders. We treat primarily anxiety, low mood, depression, stress, panic, phobias, some PTSD. So we've got quite a wide repertoire of interventions.
Thank you. So as I said, this Facebook Live is all about stress. So I want to know, what does stress feel like, and how would you know if you're stressed?
Sure, so that's also a good question. It's interesting actually, because adults are notoriously bad at actually recognising when they're stressed, especially when you compare it to children who are usually pretty good at noticing it. But there are usually some key signs. So ones that we hear most often about is an emotional part. So irritability comes up, which most people don't recognise as being quite often part of stress. And then you get that sense of anxiety as well. There might be some key thought stuff as well going on there. So a lot of people struggle to, refocus from worries. So they might find it difficult getting to sleep at night because their mind's churning over things. They might find themselves constantly finding it difficult to make decisions as well. So if you sort of find yourself not feeling confident making a decision, it's making you feel quite anxious, that might be a good sign. And there's a lot of things where people might withdraw as well. So you might start to notice that hobbies or things that you used to enjoy, or maybe social interactions, you just don't feel up to it. You'd much rather sort of sit and focus on what's going on at work or what's going on in the family.
Great, thank you for that. So carrying on from that question to both of you, what are both of your top tips for managing stress from your experience in talking therapies or from other experiences?
I think, like Dom says, that's a really good point. How do we actually figure out that we're stressed? And stress doesn't always come in one big burst. It can come and it can punctuate your day, so that you almost like it sneaks up on you. So it's really important that you kind of sit down when you're calm, not when you're stressed, and kind of just look back at your previous day and think about what's happened, taking on those tips that Dom just mentioned, and kind of look at, well, they might not have been that bad each time, but across the day, that helped me or hindered me in doing a lot of the things I would have done. In terms of what you do when you are stressed, I think the first key thing is you recognise it. When people are stressed, and I think I'm right in saying this is a key feature of therapy, it's not what we do, it's not what stress does to us that harms us, it's what we do in response to the stress. So when we look at people who are intolerant to those sensations, when they come into therapy, we'll find they do quite destructive things at the difficult end of the scale. And I think it's those that we can help people most with. And I would say, ultimately, I don't want to jump the gun with I'll don't carry on for
Well, I'd keep you here forever if I talked about everything I wanted to. I guess there are two main points, and kind of picking up on what you said. The main thing is recognising it, but also sort of changing your relationship with it. So I won't bore you with all the research that's been done, but I think there's been a lot of things out there in the last 50 years about talking about how damaging stress is or how bad it can be for your health. And more interestingly, recent research has shown actually it's your relationship with it. So stress itself is on your side. It's there to kind of help you step up to whatever challenge you've got coming your way. it becomes a bit problematic when you start to see that as dangerous, when you start to feel, as you said before, intolerant or uncomfortable with experiencing that stress. So I guess the first thing I'd say to anybody is it's normal, you're not on your own, and it's there to help you, it's on your side, it's there to get you through it. The second thing I'd say is, I think also what you said before, is it's not so much about getting rid of stress, it's about building your resilience. And stress is a really sneaky thing as well, because it will try and get you to do things which it thinks is really helpful to stop you from doing stuff that used to give you resilience. So a lot of people I speak to kind of want to spend more time thinking about the stresses. So it might be work, for example. You'll come home and you'll mull over it and you'll think about it, and you just won't feel up to talking, or you won't feel up to doing your hobbies or exercising. And that feels like the right thing to do, but it's often the thing that's bringing down your resilience. So what I'd say to anybody is kind of accept that the stress is there, it's on your side, it's there to help. But then think to yourself, what would I be doing if I was happier, if I was a bit more stress-free? And that tends to be your answer of the things you need to do to build that resilience. That could be your hobbies, exercise, and a very good one, very supported by research, is social connection. If you can get some social support going, you're on the right track.
That's perfect, very interesting, thank you both. So we've had a couple of questions submitted prior to this Facebook Live. So the first question we have is a question from Neelam, thank you Neelam, who has asked, how can you help others around you, for example one of my friends, if they're feeling stressed?
Well, it's a very good point, Neelam. We can see stress in other people, especially those close to us. One of the really interesting things that I learned about stress, one of my light bulb moments, if you like, was about stressed people have a problem or develop a difficult relationship with uncertainty. So you might notice in people around you, close family members, friends, that they become uncertain about things that they would normally do without hesitation. So you ask them if they want to go out somewhere, and they might not be as keen to go, they might be avoidant. I suppose it's being patient with people who are stressed, and not writing them off if you arrange to go out with them and then they don't. It's a careful balancing act, because while we don't want to play into stress and help them avoid the things that we know are okay for them, we also don't want to completely accommodate their new way of thinking and join in. So it is a difficult one, and this is where we come in. You don't have to therapise your friends. There are experts ready, waiting to take that role on, so you can remain a friend and they can go and get the help that they need. Stress is something we know a lot about. It's a very treatable disorder.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Dom? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the very fact that you're actually asking that question of what can I do to support my friends, it tells me you're probably just doing the right thing already. So I'll say the right thing, the best thing. So the biggest thing is support, and I told myself I'm not going to whittle on about research, but sort of excuse me this one point. In America, they did a study and they compared people who were really, really stressed, as a lot of people are, to people who were really stressed but had that social support there. And that's not necessarily people who kind of helped them with the stress, they were just there and there was some sort of social connection. And they found that the people with the social connection did significantly well with it, and they did really, really well. There was no health effects of the stress, it went perfectly for them. So the fact that you're there and you're trying to support them is the best thing that you can do for them. And kind of what I would say is it might not be that your support is, I guess, talking to them about the stress or trying to problem solve it. A lot of the times people just aren't in a position for that. Often what can be really useful is just getting them doing things that they're used to do. So if you can think of something you can do together, that might help them just kind of get back in touch with focusing on something different. And just help them along in that process. That could be going out for a drink, that could be going go-karting, who knows, just something that's going to take their mind off it and give them that bit of social support.
Perfect, thank you so much, that's really interesting. So the next question, we've had another question from someone called William, who's asked, there are so many different levels to feeling stressed, which can seem like things are getting on top of you. How do you know the best way of dealing with this, and at what stage should you seek help? To both of you.
Well, that again is a very good question. I might be tempted to go back to, well, taking into account what Dom said about stress is normal, and stress is an everyday occurrence. Your friends might reflect back when it's becoming a problem, it's difficult to know. If it's on your mind and the word is coming up in your conversation and you're thinking that it's become a part of your life, that's why we're here. Contact us. One of the first things we do with people is we run through a series of questions which will give us an idea about your stress levels. So by doing that, we can look at it and say, listen, you're doing all right, or you might need some help. We've then got different levels of intervention that we could help you with. So if you're thinking stress is a problem, the chances are it is. And we've got, please don't worry about clogging up our system. We've got lots of different levels of intervention available. So you're not in the camp with the people who are very stressed. We've got some online solutions that we can offer to people which just nips stress in the bud. One really interesting thing that Dom said there was going go-karting. I think we should go there.
Yeah, we'll do that.
No,
not my stress.
Really? Yeah, we should. Because one of those things is that stress and excitement are the same chemical. It's adrenaline, and those are the kind of things that we avoid when we become stressed, and we become stressed over time. We don't do things that excite us because it reminds us of being stressed. And go-karting is exciting, isn't it?
It is. It is very
So
exciting.
things particularly like that which we say is why exercise is so good, because it builds those sensations where we're breathing hard, your heart's beating fast, and it normalises them to some degree. So it's go-karting all round.
Yeah, Dom, I was going to say, do you think there's a particular time where people should seek help, or would you say, there's no specific time at all?
There really isn't, which isn't the answer I suppose you want. But like you said, Marcus, if you're starting to think it might be a problem, then get in contact with us. One of my favourite things to do is spend 45 minutes speaking to somebody who's come for a bit of help, for us to kind of conclude at the end they're doing really well and that they don't need us. And then that also gives us an opportunity to say, look, these are the things that you can start to do that will just keep you on that track or maybe get you a bit further. But I can't emphasise enough, if you feel like you'd benefit from just talking to somebody and going, look, this is what's going on, is it normal, do I need a bit of support, then just call us or refer yourself to us, because that's part of our job. We're here to figure it out with you and help you through it.
That's great, thank you both. So a bit of a different question now. What initially attracted you both to a career in this field? Some people might be interested in fulfilling a career like this themselves, so what initially attracted you both?
Do you want to go first or shall I?
Oh, I don't know if we've got long enough.
That's the point. Well, I'll tell you what, I can keep mine quite concise. Mine's a bit of a cliche, really. I sort of start out with that whole, well, I just want to help people. But it is a big part. If I can sort of sit down for 50 minutes and some of the stuff that we go through with somebody helps them feel like their life is a little less insurmountable, that gives me so much achievement. So it's coming from quite a selfish place, really, if you put it like that. But it's so rewarding. And also the massive benefit to it is I can sort out all the things going wrong in my end as well. But yeah, it's definitely a bonus.
Great, thank you.
I completely fell into it by chance. I worked in the sciences, and at the university I was at, there was a lovely lady who I owe every twist and turn in my career to, and she kind of spotted that I've got a big mouth and I talk too much, and she said, that could be used over there, and here we are. It's a strange, but like Dom said, helping people is the NHS, which I won't bang on about too much, I think is one of the last things that we've got that's really good about the country. In that, when you work in the NHS, one of the massive benefits is you walk down the street and you look at people and you think, how can we help that person? How can we make their life better? Whether it be from a cardiovascular point of view or an emotional well-being point of view. We see children and going through difficulties in units like CAMS that we've got, and we think, how can we feed that back? How can we make it better that children have, enjoy better emotions during the childhood than they might have done? I don't think there's a job like that. I think we're very lucky, aren't we, Dom?
We are.
That's great, thank you both. So, we heard about your lovely dog, Buddy.
Oh, he's a cracker.
Very cute dog. When it was International Day of Happiness.
Yeah.
So do you think it's important to focus on something that makes you happy when you're feeling stressed?
Well, again, we've got a problem of two halves here, because we've got avoidance, and one of the things that people who come to therapy discover with us is that is that this is often a problem of thought. So it's things people think about that cause them problems, and if we avoid that, that leads into dysfunctional behaviours. I think one of the lovely things about having a dog like Buddy, and he is lovely, let me tell you, it breaks up any worry. It gives you a sense of purpose, and I think when I look around, it's my own personal opinion, but when I look around the communities that I live in and work for, you see some people who are desperately short of a sense of purpose. That they might get up in the morning and think, what am I doing here? What are we all doing here? But in the short term, to get up and walk your dog, and he does smile at me. He does.
He's smiling.
I know he shouldn't, but he does.
He's smiling.
There's nothing to beat that, and I think it just breaks up any. Like Dom said, you get up in the morning, you start worrying about things that haven't happened yet, like at work, or catastrophising about what you think might go wrong in your day. I think a dog stops you doing that, and I won't bang on this, I'm sorry, but Buddy doesn't care. He doesn't care what I did at work, whether I've got a nice car or a nice house, or whether I've got a fancy. These are from Asda, but if you've got
other shops are available.
Fancy clothes, yeah, and I think one of the things that dogs do is they bring out the best in the relationships that we might have, where we don't judge each other, we don't look at each other's bad points, we just focus completely in the moment about what's good right now.
Love it. Thank you so much. So, who would you say, going back to your services again, who would you say that the services you offer are aimed at, and what would you say to anyone who's unsure if it's the right place to contact?
So basically our service is designed for anybody who's 16 or over who's a school leaver, and really all it's designed to do is just help people who are experiencing low mood and anxiety. Give you a bit of perspective on that, 1 in 4 every year will develop what we call a common mental health difficulty, so low mood or anxiety. So it's really normal, and it'd be surprising if people go through the span of their life without experiencing that. So that gives you an idea about who's appropriate for us. It's pretty much everybody at some point. If you're getting to a point where you're not sure and you feel like you benefit from us, there is nothing wrong with just booking yourselves in for us to check things out. I've had people to me before at the end of it have been worried about wasting our time, and it's not the case. It's not the case. It's part of our job, and we really do enjoy speaking to people, whether they need us or not, because they can listen to me whittle on about various things. So if you're unsure, get in contact with us. In terms of getting in contact with us, we've got a website, which I presume is going to be in the video.
Yeah, we can pop that in the comments.
So probably the easiest way, considering you're all on Facebook, is if you follow that link, there'll be some stuff there of how to get in contact with us. You don't need to speak to your GP. If you want to first, you can speak to them and say, can you make a referral for me? But you don't need to. We're designed to speak to people first if they want to.
So that was going through my next question, but as you said, people can get in contact via the website, phone numbers on there, there's different methods to get in contact, GP if they want to, but what were you going to say, Marcus?
Well, adding to that, yeah, and about whether people get in touch with us, what we've discovered, we look very carefully, we are can we say we're a team of reasonably smart people, and we try, we give a good impression, and we look carefully at what's gone before, so we get better about what we do next. And what that allows us to do is look at the people who are now severe. We find that they once weren't, so that when their problems started, they've gone through a sequence of events, and what we're trying to do now is say to people, come earlier, don't let things get bad, don't let things get severe from what we'd say. I mean, if they are severe, do come, and we've got other services. We don't deal with people right at the severe end of the scale, we would pass them on. But the earlier on that we can catch a pattern of problems, the more easily and the more quickly that we can treat it. And anyone who's, again, like Dom says, is thinking that they might fall into that category or can feel things getting worse, come and talk to us. We're set up to do that.
Perfect, thank you so much. And so the last question to both of you, if there's one thing you could say to someone who's coping with stress right now, what would you say?
Easy, breathe. That's it, just breathe.
Dom?
How can I beat that? It's What would I say? One thing. I guess the main thing I'd say to somebody is a little bit about what I said before, is kind of notice what things that you're doing less of. Recognise those things as probably the stuff that was keeping you resilient before the stress came along, and try and get yourself back into some of those things. Your brain will tell you it's going to be a waste of time and it's not going to be worthwhile and you're not going to feel any better. But test it out, and usually after a couple of times about getting back into these things, you'll notice some resilience building again.
Lovely, thank you. So I believe we've had a question. Would you be able to let us know what the question is?
So the question's from Michelle, and she says, I get stressed about flying, can you give me any advice?
Where do we start?
Well, yeah, Michelle. Yeah, it's a very good question, Michelle. Flying is again a thought disorder. I can tell you about this because I was a frightened flyer myself before I trained to do the job. Subsequently to that, and having trained and now know the techniques, I was 12 months ago I worked out on an island and flew in on a little plane every week, and I can tell you my stress levels were absolutely they were at zero. So it really does work. We'll find people who are frightened of flying will start to worry a long time before the event. And in each sequence, they will start to build a little picture in the mind. They'll match those to physical sensations. Those physical sensations will give credibility to the thoughts that they're having. And before they know it, they're off on a journey, often involving, don't watch aircraft investigation and things like that, but the whole thing will end up being like a catastrophic nightmare. Those physical sensations that you get as you're getting on the plane will only feed into the idea that things are going to go wrong. But these are the things that we can help with. Have you anything to add to that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the first point is, of course you are. It makes a lot of sense why you'd feel quite anxious with an airplane. I think a lot of people are, and I think that we don't see many of them because most people then just avoid airplanes. But because you're asking this question, it makes me think that part of you is going, well, I don't want to be anymore and I want to be able to get on the planes. So what I would say is there's a part of your brain that decides what's dangerous and what's not. I won't go into the names of it, but it just decides what's dangerous and what's not. And that could be through experience, that could be just through things you hear. And once it's made that decision, it tends to have to see it's safe before it'll change its mind. So in lots of areas of our life, we can kind of see this is the case. If you had somebody come up to you and say, oh, I'm really nervous about singing on stage, but it's all I've ever wanted to do. Usually the advice is we don't say, well, avoid it then, because you're not cut out for it. We tend to say, well, give it a go. And after a bit of time, you'll start to feel better with it. And it's the same process. Now that's easy said than done if I'm then telling you to go and sit on a plane and keep doing that. Plus it would be really expensive. But the idea is that the anxiety is not going to hurt you, and it's also absolutely fine to get that anxious. So if you're not a frequent flyer, it's okay to go through that. It's not going to cause you harm. And if it's really important for you, there was a book that was out, I can't remember who wrote it, but it says feel the fear and do it anyway. And that is the main thing I'd say to you. But if it's really getting in the way and you can't feel the fear and do it anyway, then maybe contact a service like us and maybe we can give you some pointers.
That's perfect. Well, thank you for that question. If anyone else has any other questions, if you want to pop them in the comments and then we can get back to you, whether it's ourselves or if we get in touch with Marcus and Dom. But I think that's it from us. Thank you very much for watching and tune in. I'm sure we'll have another Facebook Live again soon. Thank you.